I'm delighted to be able to introduce our guest speaker today, Elizabeth Smith from Brass Bands England, who will be presenting this morning's session and giving us all the information we need on the BOPA, as well as taking questions from the floor. Elizabeth will give a short presentation, which will include some slides, which we will share after the session's over, and also a recording of the session. And then there'll be plenty of time at the end for Q&A, so please do keep your questions coming as you think of them throughout the session. We are in webinar today, so there is a Q&A function where we'd like you to put your questions if possible, and there's the ability there to upvote any questions that you'd particularly like to hear the answer to as well. So please do that as we go through. And any chats or saying hello or comments, other things like that, please pop in the chat. If we can keep the Q&A for questions, that just makes my life much easier at the end of the session. We have captions enabled today, so if you need those, please do turn them on. Should be one of the options along the bottom bar for you on the platform. And again, we're in webinar today, so sadly we won't see all your smiling faces, and we won't be able to hear from you, but you don't have to worry about cameras, so that's a bonus. It's great to have lots of you joining us today. My colleagues Laura and Youssef in the background will be sharing some links to a feedback form at the end of the session, so if you could take a couple of minutes just to fill that in, please, that would be really great. We'd gratefully received. And as I say, all the slides and everything will be shared after the event. While we've got you here, we would like you to just add some links to the chat of our latest training and events programs, things we've got coming up, which includes our annual conference, which Elizabeth will be with us at as well to host a stand exploring the BOPA a little bit more. So there's some links going up in the chat for those, so please take a look at those and get booked up to our other events in the programme. And actually, we've just launched a new event and ensemble coordinators peer group, which we are really excited to start. So if that resonates with any of you in the roles that you are in, please do get signed up for that. And more information will be, as I say, will be magically popped into the chat by my fantastic colleagues doing the backstage work today. Okay, I'm going to stop waffling. The attendees have leveled off now, and you don't want to hear any more from me, so I'm going to pass over to Elizabeth. Thank you so much for joining us today, Elizabeth, and I'll pop back in later to do some Q&A with you. Thanks, over to you.
Perfect, that's great. Hello everyone, I'm really delighted to be here this morning to tell you a little bit more about the MusEd Safe membership. So I'm just going to start by sharing my screen. Okay, and hopefully, am I sharing the right screen? Let me just double check because I didn't actually look to. Yes, sharing screen too. Good, excellent. We're okay. Off we go. So yes, I'm going to be talking to you today about MusEd Safe, and really the big advantage for you to be taking up this offer is all to do with child performance licensing. So let's move on and find out a little bit more about that. So actually, child performance licensing was introduced to regulate performers of compulsory school age. I'll say exactly what that is in a minute, to protect them from commercial exploitation and inappropriate working hours. And some sectors, such as the theatre, acting world and child modelling, were well used to these regulations, but outside of those sectors, they weren't very well known. The legislation was passed in 1963, and that was as a result of the child actors in Oliver who missed lots of school accidentally. New regulations were introduced in 2014 as a result of the Jimmy Savile scandal. So when we're talking about child performance licensing, we're talking about those children who are age 16 and under until they reach compulsory school leaving age, which is the last Friday in June of year 11. So once a child gets beyond that last Friday in June of year 11, then they no longer need to be licensed. If you are organising an event, then the responsibility for holding that licence actually falls to you as the event organisers. However, if you're booked to perform somewhere else and the organiser hasn't sorted out the licensing, then you know that your children need to be licensed. The responsibility does fall onto you. So there are three ways that you can actually license, get the licensing in place. The first way I'm going to speak about is actually a child performance license itself. So that is done on a child by child basis. It is applied for to the local authority where a child is living. So if you're doing an event, say with 12 children, you'll need to organise 12 child performance licenses. And if those children live in different local authorities, then you would have to apply to the right local authority for each child. It's quite a long-winded procedure if you're using a lot of children. If you're only ever working with one child, then it would be much simpler. It's important to note that this is the only form of licensing that you can use. If you are actually paying children to perform, then you have to use a child performance license for that. So an exception to having individual child performance licenses is to use a BOPA, or a body of persons approval. There are a couple of ways that you can actually get a BOPA. It is actually a legal exemption to needing a child performance license. So you can go to the local authority where the event is taking place and ask to use their BOPA. Each local authority will, it has the ability in law to set their own terms and conditions for that. So one local authority might say, oh, our ratio is 1 adult to 6 children, and another local authority might, for example, say our ratio is 1 adult to 10 children. An alternative is to use BBE's BOPA. So Brass Bands England holds a national BOPA which covers England and Wales. We are issued that BOPA by the Secretary of State for Education, and then our members can use our BOPA to cover their performances, providing that they meet certain requirements. Okay, I'm going to move on to the next slide. So on this slide here, then, hopefully you can see the, what's it called? A decision tree, which is explaining and showing when you need to have a licensing in place. So first of all, in the top left-hand corner, you can see, it says, do you have any 16-year-olds or under of compulsory school age performing? So in other words, at your event, are you including children who have not yet reached the last Friday in June of year 11? And if you have, then you might need to have some kind of child performance licensing in place. So if you've got children aged 16 or under, and you are charging for tickets to that event, that doesn't have to be just people, paying money on the door or in advance. It could be some of our brass band members, for example, go out busking or caroling around Christmas time. And if they've got a bucket in front of them and they're asking for donations, then that is included in that category as well. So if you're charging, you need some kind of license in place. If there's a license to sell alcohol on the venue that you are performing, then you need to have some licensing in place. So I think every theatre probably in England and Wales will have a licensed bar, even if that bar is closed during your performance, because there is a license in place to sell alcohol at the venue. Then you're going to need some kind of performance licensing. And that also occurs for temporary event licenses. So if you are going to be doing a performance outside, for example, in the summertime, a pub or a bar might have applied for a temporary alcohol license to cover the area where you are performing. So we would always advise, if you're doing anything outside in the summer, that you apply for a BOPA, because you wouldn't necessarily know whether somebody has applied for a license, an alcohol license for the area where you are. And also, if the performance is being recorded or broadcast sort of commercially, not by parents just filming to send things on to their to grandparents. But you know, internet streaming, CD recordings, those kind of things, then you're going to need some kind of licensing in place. And then we've got a section about, will the child be missing school? So it used to be that whenever a child was missing school to perform, then you could only ever use the child performance license route, that individual license. However, that then changed so that if heads were happy to use code B in the register, then our BOPA could be used. And the code B was the one that was saying it was an approved educational activity. But whenever a head teacher used code B in the register, they were taking on the responsibility for the safeguarding of that event, even though they weren't actually there in person. Since August this year, a new statutory guidance has been issued. It's called Working Together to Improve School Attendance. You can see just the front cover of that on your screen. And inside there is an official new code that's been given, and it's code C1. And it's for use when a pupil is absent with leave for the purpose of participating in a regulated performance or undertaking regulated employment abroad. So that is the code. If you want to use our BOPA to take a child out of school, then you would need to make sure head teachers had agreed to it by using C1 in their register. The guidance does clearly state that this applies to maintained schools. So, you know, it can be used in state schools as well. So if a child is missing school, our BOPA itself doesn't give them the exemption for missing school. You need the school to grant permission for the absence by using the code C1. And if the head teacher doesn't agree to use C1, then you won't be able to use the BOPA. But what it does mean is that if heads do agree to use C1, then it doesn't count as an absence for their attendance statistics. It's classified for statistical purposes as an authorised absence. So it won't affect, you know, those rates that you see of absenteeism in school. Yep. So that's a bit about the being able to use the BOPA for children who are going to need to take time off school, and we're always happy to support members in that. In fact, I've just had a call this morning from a MusEd Safe member asking about how best to go about acquiring that permission. The other thing that's on the decision tree there is about whether a child has taken part in 3 or more performances with any groups in the 6 months preceding the performance date. So when a child has performed for more than 3 days in the last 6 months, then they do need to have a license to perform on the 4th day. Now, because it would be so difficult from an administrative point of view to keep tabs on who had performed where, because it's not just with your group, it could be with anything. It could be with a majorette troupe or a gym club or you know, all kinds of different situations. So we would just advise that you assume that your children will have taken part in more than 3 performances, and therefore make sure that you apply for some kind of child performance licensing. And we would suggest that the best way of doing that is to use BBE's BOPA. Okay, move on a slide. So what is included in the MusEd Safe membership? Well, you get the use of our BOPA for child performance licensing, and I'm going to run you through how that works in a minute. And the feedback we have had from all our members, and in particular our MusEd Safe members, is how easy it is to use. And that's generally because MusEd Safe members are working with much larger groups of children than our brass band members are. You'll also get access to the safeguarding and BOPA support and advice. You'll be able to use our safeguarding self-assessment tool, which is a series of policies to look through and check that you have got similar things in place, and I'll run you through that in a minute. But we did have some lovely feedback from Leicestershire Music Services, actually, they found the toolkit really useful. And although they were already doing most of the things that were suggested in it, it gave them the opportunity to review their practices. And they actually said that they felt it was better than the training offered by their county council. And Leicestershire Music Services have flagged up the Band Safe toolkit to their county council, who are now rewriting their policies and procedures, having looked at what it is that we are recommending. So that's, you know, a really big stamp of approval there for the toolkit. So our BOPA is issued to us by the DFE, and the DFE have a requirement on the use of the BOPA that 2 members from each organisation have to have done the Band Safe training every 2 years. So the Band Safe training is a 3.5-hour training session that takes place online. The DFE have agreed to a special exemption for MusEd Safe members, and that is if you have members of staff who already have designated safeguarding lead training, so level 3 safeguarding training, if you send me the certificate or the proof that a member of staff has done that, I can sort of marry that up with one of our Band Safe trainings, because the DSL training is valid for 2 years, and our Band Safe training is valid for 2 years. So I look at the date on the certificate, I match it up to the closest Band Safe training that has taken place, and then that is the equivalent of that person having to do the training. So they don't need to do the training, but for our systems, it looks like the DFE is completely happy with that, and you can have as many members of staff who have done the DSL training elsewhere validated for our account. And if you have other members of staff who haven't done the DSL training, then each year we offer you 2 free places on our Band Safe training. So why is the Band Safe training or the validation of certificates important? For 2 reasons. Firstly, in order to be able to apply for a BOPA, you have to have 2 people who are either DSL validated or Band Safe trained. And then at every event or performance that you have, one of those people has to be there. So looking back at people who are using our system already, and we've got 15 MusEd Safe members, most of those members have got 2, 3 or 4 people who have done DSL training elsewhere. They've sent me the certificate and I validated it against their account. And only 2 of those members have decided to take up our free Band Safe training. So they've had additional staff trained so that when they've got an event, they don't need to necessarily have one of their DSLs there. They can have the person who's been Band Safe trained instead. So it just gives you a bit more flexibility. We can train as many members of staff as you want, but your membership for the £250 annual fee, that includes 2 free people being trained. And then the subsequent year, you could have 2 different people trained, which means you've got 4 people then Band Safe trained, so 4 extra people who could go to your events. There is no limit. If you want to buy extra training for any of your staff, the course would cost £65, and there's no limit to how many people you can have trained. There's no limit to how many people we can validate the certificates for. By virtue of the fact that you are a MusEd Safe member, then you will also get discount at attending our other training events. We offer lots of different training. You would be able to use our discount for those as well. You'll get the advice on the legislative changes. So I, sent an email round in September to let all our MusEd Safe members know about the change in law regarding the absence code. And you can also use our resources and information packs. Okay. Just one other bit of feedback I just wanted to give, and that was from Birmingham Service for Education. They also said that our BOPA was really easy to use, and they had used before using our BOPA, they'd used Birmingham Council's BOPA, which they felt was very restrictive. And also they had never been inspected by Birmingham all the time they'd been using their BOPA. One of the conditions of our BOPA that the DFE put on us is that we have to inspect 10% of organisations who are using it every year. So I've been out to a couple of MusEd Safe members and seen them in action, and I've seen what a brilliant job that they are doing in terms of safeguarding, because that's the important thing. The BOPA is not just an administrative purpose. Its whole point is it's there to keep children safe. Okay, so I'm going to move on now, and I'm just going to show you what you will need to do in order to be able to use our BOPA. So this should be taking you through to our website now, and hopefully you can see that on your screen. If not, I hope someone from I think Laura maybe will step in and tell me that nobody can see it. So looking on your screen now, you should be able to see BBE's website. And what you'll need to do is you'll need to create a little login area up here. So I've already got one. So when I come on, mine says member dashboard. You'll have to do the usual, giving your name and email in order to get it. And when I log on, then I get into my member dashboard. And up here on the top bit of my account, I've got this tile here that says a band safe toolkit, which is what I will need to click on. So in order to be able to have access to your BOPA, you have to have membership with BBE. Your organisation has to have membership. You have to complete this toolkit, which I'm going to show you in a second. And that has to be completed we advise every year. It actually will last for 18 months. And you need to have those 2 people either DSL validated or band safe trained. When you create your account, you will need to register as part of your organisation. So you'd need to click onto this button here. I'll just put in here Leicestershire, if I can spell it, because they're a MusEd member. Is it coming up? And then we've got Leicestershire Music. So I would click on that, and this would submit through, and it would go to whoever at Leicestershire Music Services is in charge of their admin. It'd say Elizabeth Smith wants to join, and they would hopefully click no, we don't want her to join because we don't know her. But in your case, they would click yes, and you would be able to join the right organisation. The band safe self-assessment toolkit then. So I would click on this. Mine always opens partway through, but let's go back to the beginning. The Band Safe Toolkit is just a way of you being able to go through and make sure you've got everything in place, all the things that that you need. So do you have, for example, when someone, a child joins your organisation, do you give them the information about rehearsal time, subs, any costs, things like that? You click yes, and then you'll get a little paragraph down here, and there's a bit more information. And this going on this hyperlink will take you through to all our band safe resources. There's lots of different policies and things that you can read through that you'll find useful. These are things that Leicestershire Music Service found really useful, and that their county council has been using to help them to update their policies. Or if you click no, you'll get a different bit of writing, and on this case it's sending you through to the same resource there to get some advice. There are different sections on it. There's, recruiting new players. There's one about health and safety, and so on and so forth. If you have any problems answering any of the questions, then just get in touch with us. It might be that one of the questions doesn't apply in your situation, in which case you can just click yes to it. That's fine if it doesn't apply for you. But as I say, any questions, get in touch. You only want one person in your organisation to fill this in, and they need to be on the admin for your account. Otherwise, it won't make any difference to your account, and it won't show up. So if I go back actually to my dashboard here. So when you join your organisation, it will say down here, my group, and it will say Leicestershire Music Services or whichever the name of your group is. And you'll see a lot of tiles. I get loads of tiles because I belong to Brass Band England. You won't have as many tiles as me. If you're an admin for your account, then you'll have the manage the group settings. And by doing this, you can click on to a person and you can edit their details, and you can, make them a user or give them admin and so on. And at the bottom, so I showed you before how an individual could ask to join your organization. The other way of doing it is you can go to invite new member at the bottom. So an admin could do this, putting the people in your organization who you want to be invited to your account, and then send that through and they will join your account. So if you look down here at this tile where it says BOPA status, so you need to have this showing either green at the bottom or orange in order for this next tile to show up, and that's the apply for event BOPA. So the membership will have a tick next to it. When you have paid your invoice, then you'll get that tick. If you've not paid your invoice, then you won't. The event tile won't come up. The toolkit, once somebody has been through and checked that, and remember that's something that we ask you to do annually, so it's just a one-off job. Once you've done it once, it's a lot faster than the next time through, then you'll get the tick there. If it's coming up to the time when your membership needs to be renewed, or your toolkit needs to be renewed, or your training needs to be updated, then a sand timer will appear and you'll get an orange bar at the bottom. So that's just a reminder that you need to be looking at whatever the thing is with the sand timer next to it. You will still be able to apply for the event BOPA, but if you have a red cross next to the membership, the toolkit or the training, then you won't be able to apply for the BOPA. So you'll get a tick next to your training once you've got your two people who've had their DSL training validated, or that you've had your they've been on the Band Safe course. And then you go to the apply for the event BOPA tile, which is really quite simple. So on this form here, there are lots of boxes, but you don't necessarily have to fill them in. To use the BOPA, you have to fill in all the ones with an asterisk. So you would put your title in of your event. You would say which group it's for, because some of our brass band members might be a member of lots of different bands. So you would click on whichever your group is. It will only give the option of the one that your account is linked to. You put in the date and the time of your performance. If you want to advertise your event on our website, then you can add all of this additional information. But if you're not interested in advertising on the website, then you don't fill this in. And then all you have to do with regards to children is put the number of children that you will have got at your event. You don't need to give us any names or details or anything like that. Okay. You give us the address. Don't bother about the map. It will automatically put the map to the right place when you click on the button at the bottom. And then if you want to put this on for public display, click that. If you want for private, click here. And then you have to accept the BOPA terms and conditions. So I'm just going to show you those terms and conditions. So these apply for all your events. You have to be a BBE member. You have to have one person who's done the Band Safe training there, or someone who is DSL trained in your case. The ratio is 1 adult to 12 children. We would always recommend having a spare. If you're talking about big numbers in the hundreds, then you'll want to have 2 or 3 spare adults. You don't need to be licensed to be a licensed chaperone to use BBE's BOPA. That's one of the big advantages. The supervising adults do need to know what they're doing. They need to be competent. There are some regulations that they should read through, and they need to have had a DBS check carried out in the last 3 years. The performances are only in England and Wales. When you have clicked the button at the bottom of the last page, it will automatically send a certificate to you, and that certificate needs to be sent on to your local authority where the event is taking place 2 weeks before the event takes place. You have to let the local authority inspect. They've got the legal right to come in and inspect. And if they're not happy with what they see, they can stop the event happening. And we also ask that we are allowed to come and inspect. We don't have the legal power to close anything down. We would work with you. If there was something we weren't happy with, we would work with you to put that right. We've spoken about being absent from school. You need to have a risk assessment for the event. You need a first aider. You need an accident book. So because you don't have to send all of those names and data of your children off to the local authority, you do need to make sure that you have either got it with you or accessible, either, you know, with you on a piece of paper or accessible via a device. You have to have the consent from a parent, the medical information, photographic consents, and contact details. There is a form that you can use if you wish. You can use our form. This form can be typed over. You don't need to use that. You can just use however you would normally collect that information, but it has to be accessible at the event, either on paper or via your device. There are restrictions around how long children can perform for, and depending on their age and so on. I'm sure you would naturally find that your children are falling within those bounds. You need to have suitable arrangements for, you know, if they're there for a long time above the timings that are on here, if they need to have breaks and so on, that needs to be properly sorted out. You cannot use our BOPA if it's for performances on more than 6 consecutive days. You need some kind of system where you hand the children back to their parents, and you've got a register so you know who you've got with you. Okay, so those are the main conditions there, but they're all there, and when you use our BOPA, they will be emailed out to you. If I just go back to, oh, hang on, sorry, I didn't want to do that. Let me just go back to where we were. So once you've accepted this, you then click at the bottom, save, and then you will be issued with a certificate, which I will show you in a second. Okay, so now we can go back to the PowerPoint. So just a quick reminder, you need to have MusEd Safe membership, 2 people band safe trained or the DSL validation, and one of them has got to be at the event. You've got to have done the toolkit. It's only for performances in England and Wales, and you have to send that BOPA certificate through to your local authority 2 weeks in advance of the event. You need the adults, 1 to 12. Your supervising adults can be playing with the group, but they could only be supervising children who were sitting opposite them in your formation and not behind, because during a performance, they're probably not going to be able to hear a child if they shout out. So that's why they must be able to see them. We've spoken about all of the other things on there. Oops, I didn't mean to just press on. Yeah, we spoke about all of those things. And there is a link here that will take you exactly to the BOPA conditions, so you can see them all in detail if you wish. So this is a certificate that's issued to you. It comes out automatically as soon as you press save. You get the email through with the list of the conditions and the certificate attached, and you just forward that on to the authority where the event is taking place. And just if you want to take out a what's it called, a subscription with us, then I can show you the page that you will go to on our website. So you'll come to our MusEd Safe page, and you just need to fill in the details. Mine is filled in because I was just doing a test of it yesterday. There's a drop down of the different subscription types, and you want to make sure yours is saying MusEd Safe 250. You might notice on the drop down list that yours is more expensive than our band members, and that's because your MusEd Safe membership includes more than our band members. So for our band members, they're paying, for example, for their band safe training on top, whereas yours is included. And we know from the experience of this last year how hard it can be for some of our MusEd members to get their finance departments to pay our invoice. So it's easier for them if we kind of almost invoice you up front for everything that you would want, rather than having to put things through in dribs and drabs, because that seems to be a bit of the sticking point in the procedure for quite a few of our MusEd members is just getting that invoice actually paid. So you do have a choice. You can pay by a debit or a credit card, by PayPal, or you can click on to say that you require an invoice, and then that invoice would be sent out to you. Okay. Let me have a look, see what else is there. Oh, I think I've just clicked back on the slide. That was silly. Didn't mean to click. I meant to hit spacebar. So you're not on your own. We will do all that we can to facilitate you in this process. It's the initial bit that's sort of that takes the time. Once you set up on the system, actually applying for a BOPA is very quick. I mean, I know I come into work sometimes and one of our members will have gone through and they'll have done 5 BOPAs the previous evening. And when I look at the times that have come through on the certificates, because they're emailed to me as the same time they're emailed out to you, they've applied for 5 BOPAs for different events in the space of 10 minutes. So that is actually, you know, very quick once you've done all the hard work at the beginning. Just one other thing to mention, I can see in my notes and I've forgotten to say. It might be that if you are the first person in your area, in your local authority, to use our BOPA, the local authority might get back to you and query what it's all about the first time they see one of our certificates. That's not a problem. You can put them directly into contact with us. And what I do then is I send out the BOPA certificate that's issued to us by the DFE and the letter of conditions that they've given to us as well. And I send that out to the local authority and that sorts that problem out. In fact, very few local authorities have been in touch, which you know, I actually look at it the other way around. I'm really pleased when local authorities do get in touch. If they've never seen the certificate before, that they do get in touch, because it shows they've got good safeguarding processes if they're getting in touch to query what it is that they are being shown. But it's not an issue. You can just pass them on to me and I will deal with that. Okay. So I think I'm going to stop sharing my screen there, and then hopefully Rosie's going to step back in and
Hello.
Do the questions.
Hi, Elizabeth. Thank you so much. We've had quite a few questions come in, so we will get cracking on those. The first one's coming from Alison James. If you're organising a large event with a number of local authorities or music services who are providing children ensemble groups to perform, then who ultimately needs to apply for the BOPA? Us as the event organizer, or each local authority / music service providing the performers?
So you need to apply as the event organizer. You would apply using our system. That certificate would go to the local authority where the event is taking place. What would you would pass on some of the responsibility for the things that have to be in place to use our BOPA to those organisations who are coming to your event. So you would say to them, we are using Brass Bands England's BOPA. We need you to have a ratio of at least 1 DBS checked adult to 12 children. We need you to make sure that you have got consent from parents to come, photographic permission and so on. You might like to send out our form in that case and ask them to fill it in. So you look down the list of conditions, you see these are the ones that we're going to fulfill. For example, we're going to provide the first aider, we're going to provide the risk assessment for the venue. You say to the people coming, this is what you've got to do. When they arrive, you get them to sign to say that you've done all the things that you asked them to do. You say to them, have you got your parental permissions with you? And they show you on a piece of paper. You don't have to go through and check it, but they'll, hold up a folder and say, yes, we've got all our permissions here. Or they'll say, yes, we've got them. They're accessible on the device here. So they're keeping all of that, but you just need to know that they have fulfilled any requirements that you give them. You want to know that they've fulfilled it. So have something to sign on the day when they arrive to say, yes, we've done X, Y, and Z.
Perfect. Thank you. That's really helpful. Yeah, lovely. Thank you. The next one's from Andy, Sutton Music. Are all local authorities on board with the National BOPA? i.e., if we sent our certificate to a local authority, they would be legally required to accept this.
Yes, they are. So on our certificate, sorry, not on the certificate, on the covering letter, I've got it here because I was hoping somebody might ask me that question. It says, so this has come straight from the DFE. A condition of the BOPA is that you contact the local authorities where your events are taking place at least 2 weeks in advance of the relevant events. Now listen to this bit. You do not need approval from the local authorities, but they should be aware of events in child performers in their area. So all you've got to do, you've discharged your legal duty by sending that certificate off. If your local authority isn't happy, and I said I like it when local authorities aren't happy when they see it for the first time, because I think it's really important that they should be questioning and saying, hang on, we've never heard of Brass Bands England, we didn't know they had a BOPA, what's going on here? Then we can send them our official certificate from the DFE, and that clears that up. If the local authority come back to you and say, well, we still want to know the names of all the children who are performing, they can ask you that question, but there is no legal obligation on you to to do anything about it. You have fulfilled your legal obligation by giving them the numbers. So I've recently, I think it was Kent authority or an authority down there who questioned one of our bands about this, and I sent them the BOPA through and things, and they said yes, but we still want to know the names. And I got back to the woman at the Kent authority, and I said, I'd sent her the stuff through. I said, but our bands are under no legal obligation to provide you with the names. And she said, yes, I can see that they aren't under any legal obligation to provide them, but we are still going to ask for them. So they can ask, but there is absolutely no obligation on you to provide it, because we've got it here in writing from the DFE that all you've got to do is to send the certificate and just make sure that they are aware of the event. I mean, we want you to keep on good terms. The lady down, I think it was in Kent, I don't want to misname anybody, she was a very nice lady. She was quite happy about it, but just for the state, for the sake of their kind of processes, they need to ask, but they can't do anything, and they don't chase if you don't provide those.
Okay, great. And you guys at BBE will help support that as well, which is another bonus.
Yeah, we will support that. So I can't say how many authorities are on board, because we've got so many members across England and Wales. It's been particularly useful for, I went down to inspect one of our band members down in London. It's been particularly useful for them because they work across their little authorities are much smaller, aren't they? Mm-hmm. And in each one barn, it would have a different, rules on the BOPA to Lambeth and so on and so forth. Mm-hmm. So they've found it really useful because their events are in lots of different authorities, and they just have to use the BBE rules each time, and it works.
Amazing. Perfect. Thank you. Someone's asked about membership of BBE. So if members of BBE can use the National BOPA, does this mean this only applies to brass bands? I think we've covered this, but yeah, music services and hubs can join as members.
Yeah, that's right. And we also have some other members, some of our members are choirs, for example, or other music making. We've got orchestras. So yeah, it doesn't just apply for brass bands.
Amazing, thank you. Another probably quite a quick one. Is the 250 fee just for the band safe / the BOPA, or for the entire membership to BBE?
Your 250 is your you would then become BBE members, and that 250 includes two of those band safe training places, which our band members would be having to pay for on top of. And if you want more people to do the band safe training, then it's you pay the discounted band price of £65.
Perfect, thank you. And then we've got one from John Kilshaw at Wandsworth. Does the BBE BOPA with the code C1 exemption, as long as the head agrees to the absence, mean that applying for a child licence is no longer required?
Because the BOPA is an exemption to needing a child performance licence. Yeah.
So we just cut out the beginning there. So yes, because the BOPA replaces that need.
Yes, because the BOPA is actually an exemption to need a child performance licence technically.
Perfect, thank you. And then we've gone from Alison. Alison, does the membership include any assistance in obtaining, sourcing designated safeguard training for staff?
So, well, you can use our training is our band safe training. So yes, so we would advise you to send people onto our band safe training. If you've got members of staff who don't already have the DSL training, then we would say put them on the band safe course. And remember, your 250 allows 2 people to go on that each year. So that would meet that obligation.
Perfect, thank you. And then we've got from Abby. What happens if the event is requiring students to take time off school for the day? Does your BOPA still cover this? I noticed when you were presenting, it said to email Safeguarding Act, etc. if the event was during the school day, so wondered what the process is.
Sorry, could you
Oh,
say that again? Because it just went to cut out a bit for me on that.
yeah, that's
Rosie.
fine. What happens if the event is requiring students to take time off school for the day? Does your BOPA still cover this? I noticed when you were presenting, it said to email safeguarding at, etc. If the event was during the school day, so wondered what the process is.
Yeah, so we just, if you are taking children out during the day, then you need to just, it's basically to make sure that you're using the right code, that you're getting heads to use that C1 code. That's all that will tell you. If you're taking children out during the day, make sure you get the head's permission, that the head is going to put C1 in the register, because if they're not putting C1 in the register, then you won't be able to use our BOPA.
Okay, so that's a requirement of the BOPA to be using the C1 exemption.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Hopefully that's clear, Abby. And then we've got a couple of different ones for Lucy in Croydon. So what happens when you have last minute changes for performers who are not on the BOPA? If the authority look, would we be in trouble?
That's a good question. So what I always advise is to do a best guess on your number of children, because we have to get the certificate to the local authority 2 weeks in advance of an event. Don't necessarily wait until you've got all your permission slips coming through from your parents. If you're not sure if you're going to have 30 children or 35 children at the event, put the BOPA in for 35. It doesn't matter if you've got some less on the day. So I'd always err on the side of caution and up your number. If you were I think the BOPA I put on screen was our BOPA from our youth champs. I think that was about 980 that we had on there. It doesn't matter if that was lots of different bands coming to an event. You know, a band might not turn up, they might get stuck on the motorway, you might have 60 children not come. That's absolutely fine. So always and go slightly higher than you actually think is going to be there. And it's not a problem there. You can't, account for children who are going to be ill or last minute changes.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you very much. And then the last one, I think. So now we are in HLOs. Does each organisation pay the fee or just the HLO? Elizabeth and I were just having a bit of a chat about this before the webinar, and it might be something we need to kind of work out in the fullness of time, but I'll let you answer.
Yeah, that. I think Rosie, that is something that we will need to look at and see, because this scheme was designed, and the pricing was for how we were last year. So I think we will have to look and see how we're going to work with the new scenario. Yeah.
So I guess for now the advice would be to use it as we were before, and Music Mark and BB will have a further chat about that.
Yes.
In that everything's only just really started changing. So yeah. Brilliant. Okay, well, that's all the questions that we've had come in from participants. I don't know if there's any more. I'll talk a little bit more in case anyone has a last minute one they want to throw in the chat. I had one actually about whether there was a limit on the number of staff in an organisation that could use the band safe training. I know there's a cost, but is there a limit to the number of colleagues?
No, there's no limit at all. The training is run online. It's a 3.5-hour session. I usually run it twice a month. And usually most of them will be in the evenings, but each term I try and put it in a daytime course and one on a Saturday as well. So there is a variation about when they take place.
Fab, that's really good to know. Thank you. And then just one last one for me, and then we'll wrap up if no one else has got any questions. I think you mentioned about licensed chaperones, but just to confirm, do you need licensed chaperones if you're using this BOPA?
Yeah, so that's one of the advantages about using BBE's BOPA, is that there is no requirement to use a licensed chaperone. You just need adults who are DBS checked, and those adults need to be competent. Need to be adults who will be counting children and things like that, and keeping an eye out. There are there's some advice on regulations that they can look through in the BOPA conditions as well, so they make sure that they're doing a good job.
Perfect. All right, brilliant. Well, none more have come in. So, oh no, hang on, that was quick. Lucy's got another one quickly. Does the DBS check need to be from your local authority?
It doesn't matter. We don't see the DBS checks. We expect somebody within your organisation to see it. It might be your HR person or whoever, and that they keep a note of when that DBS check needs to be redone again, because it has to be according to the BOPA conditions have been done within the last 3 years. If somebody's on the update service, that's fine. Just run an update service check every 3 years.
Yeah, perfect. All right, brilliant. Well, I'm getting that one in there quickly there, Lucy, at the end. Perfect. Well, I'm not going to hold everyone up if there are no more questions. Just remains for me to say big thank you to Elizabeth for coming and talking to us today and explaining the process. If there are any questions, I guess the best place to get in touch with is the safeguarding email you mentioned, perfect, Elizabeth.
Yeah.
And if we could pop that in the chat, that would be really useful if you could do that, Laura. So yeah, that's it from us. Thank you so much for coming today. I hope it's been useful for you. The comments have seemed like it's been very informative and useful for colleagues. So again, once more, thank you very much. And if you have any other questions and you're at our conference, you can come and speak to Elizabeth in the flesh, which will be lovely.
We're looking forward to it.
Perfect. All right. Well, thank you so much. And we'll see you all again soon.